What if the most delicate-looking stars were actually Hollywood's fiercest warriors? Behind every perfect smile and glamorous gown were women who battled studios, survived tragedy, and rewrote the rules of stardom. These actresses didn't just play tough characters, they lived tougher lives than any script could imagine. Number 15. Joan Fontaine. Joan Fontaine proved that looking fragile doesn't mean being weak when she went head-to-head with her own sister, Olivia de Havilland, in Hollywood's most legendary sibling rivalry. Born into a world of privilege, Fontaine transformed herself into an Oscar-winning powerhouse who refused to live in anyone's shadow. Her breakthrough in Rebecca made Alfred Hitchcock himself declare her perfectly neurotic. But off-screen, she was calculating and ruthless. The real test of Fontaine's steel came during the 1942 Academy Awards, when she won Best Actress for Suspicion, beating her own sister, who was nominated in the same category. The cameras caught Olivia's shocked face, but Fontaine didn't flinch. She later revealed she knew Olivia would snub her congratulatory handshake, so she was ready for the ice-cold rejection that became Hollywood legend. What made Fontaine truly tough wasn't just surviving family drama, but thriving despite it. She built a career lasting 5 decades, choosing projects that challenged her rather than playing it safe. Directors loved her professionalism, but competitors feared her strategic mind. When other stars crumbled under pressure, Fontaine sharpened her focus and delivered performances that critics still call devastatingly precise. Number 14. Lana Turner. Lana Turner earned her reputation as Hollywood's ultimate survivor after enduring a scandal that would have destroyed lesser stars, when her teenage daughter stabbed Turner's abusive boyfriend to death in their Beverly Hills home. Instead of hiding, Turner faced the courtroom drama head-on, protecting her daughter while maintaining her dignity under the world's harshest spotlight. The 1958 incident became Hollywood's trial of the century, with photographers camping outside Turner's mansion and gossip columnists dissecting every detail. But Turner, wearing her famous white suit, walked into that courthouse like she owned it. She testified with such poise that even prosecutors seemed impressed. Her daughter was ruled to have acted in justifiable homicide, and Turner's strength during the ordeal actually boosted her career. What separated Turner from other glamour queens was her refusal to be a victim. She'd survived poverty, 7 marriages, and countless studio battles before the stabbing incident. When Peyton Place premiered shortly after the trial, it became one of the year's biggest hits, proving Turner could turn personal tragedy into professional triumph. Critics who once dismissed her as just another pretty face suddenly praised her raw authenticity and unbreakable spirit. Number 13. Moren OHara. Moren OHara didn't just play fierce women, she terrorized Hollywood's casting couch culture and fought back against every executive who thought her Irish accent made her controllable. This flame-haired warrior from County Cork became the industry's most feared opponent of inappropriate behavior, never hesitating to name names or throw punches when necessary. O'Hara's legendary toughness wasn't just attitude, it was physical. She insisted on doing her own stunts in swashbuckling adventures, once dislocating her shoulder during a sword fight, but finishing the scene anyway. Directors learned quickly that O'Hara wouldn't be pushed around by anyone, including leading men who tried to upstage her. She famously told John Wayne during The Quiet Man that she'd knee him where it counted if he improvised one more rough kiss. The real proof of O'Hara's steel came when she testified before Congress about harassment in Hollywood, decades before the Me Too movement existed. She named powerful executives who'd propositioned her and detailed the industry's systematic abuse of actresses. Her testimony was so damning that several careers ended overnight. Critics called her Hollywood's conscience, but O'Hara preferred someone who wouldn't take garbage from anyone, regardless of their bank account. Number 12. Susan Hayward. Susan Hayward turned a Brooklyn tough girl attitude into Oscar gold, becoming Hollywood's go-to actress for playing women who refused to surrender, no matter how desperate their circumstances became. Her specialty was portraying real-life figures who faced impossible odds, and Hayward brought a gritty authenticity that made audiences believe she'd actually lived through every tragedy she portrayed. Born Edith Mariner in a working-class neighborhood, Hayward scraped and clawed her way to stardom after losing the Scarlett O'Hara role to Vivien Leigh. Instead of sulking, she used the rejection as fuel, choosing roles that other actresses considered too risky or unglamorous. Her portrayal of alcoholic singer Lillian Roth in I'll Cry Tomorrow was so devastating that even hardened critics wept during screenings. What made Hayward truly formidable was her ability to channel real pain into unforgettable performances. When she played convicted murderer Barbara Graham in I Want to Live, she spent weeks researching death row conditions and interviewing prison guards. The resulting performance was so harrowing that it changed public opinion about capital punishment. Director Robert Wise called Hayward the most fearless actress I ever worked with. She'd go to places emotionally that other stars wouldn't even visit in their nightmares. Number 11, Lauren Bacall. Lauren Bacall was just 19 when she walked onto a Howard Hawks set and proceeded to outact, outwit, and outmaneuver Humphrey Bogart, Hollywood's most intimidating leading man. Her famous line, "You know how to whistle, don't you?" wasn't just flirtation. It was a declaration of war against every man who thought young actresses should be seen and not heard. The real test of Bacall's toughness came during the communist witch hunts of the 1950s. While other stars scrambled to distance themselves from any political controversy, Bacall stood firmly beside Bogart when he was targeted by Senator Joseph McCarthy. She organized protests, gave defiant interviews, and refused to let fear silence her voice. Even when studios threatened to blacklist her, Bacall never wavered in her support for free speech. What separated Bacall from other starlets was her refusal to play Hollywood's game by their rules. She negotiated her own contracts, chose her own projects, and spoke her mind regardless of consequences. When Bogart died, many predicted her career would collapse, but Bacall reinvented herself as a Broadway powerhouse and later returned to film stronger than ever. Critics noted her uncompromising intelligence and steel-wrapped velvet approach to both acting and life. Number 10. Rita Hworth. Rita Hworth endured one of Hollywood's most brutal transformations, having her hairline burned away with electrolysis and her identity erased to create the perfect American dream girl. But she never let the industry break her spirit. Behind the glamorous image was a woman who survived childhood trauma and used her intelligence to build a career that lasted decades. The torture Hworth endured to become Rita, instead of Margarita, would have destroyed weaker women. For months, technicians used electric needles to burn away her natural hairline, reshaping her forehead to appear more American. The pain was so intense that she sometimes fainted during sessions, but Hworth never complained or quit. She understood that reinvention was the price of stardom and paid it without flinching. What made Hworth truly tough was her ability to maintain dignity while being objectified by millions. When her image was pasted onto the atomic bomb dropped on Bikini Atoll, she was devastated but channeled her anger into more complex performances. Her portrayal in The Lady from Shanghai showed a darker, more dangerous side that shocked audiences. Director Orson Welles, who was married to Hworth at the time, called her the most professional actress I've ever worked with and the strongest woman I've ever known. Number 9. Barbara Stanwyck. Barbara Stanwyck clawed her way from Brooklyn poverty to become the highest-paid actress in America, proving that talent combined with relentless determination could overcome any obstacle Hollywood threw at ambitious women. She never played the helpless damsel. Instead, she specialized in characters who were smarter, tougher, and more ruthless than the men trying to control them. Stanwyck's legendary work ethic made her the most respected professional in Hollywood. She memorized everyone's lines, not just her own, arrived early to every set, and never complained about working conditions that sent other stars to their trailers. When filming Double Indemnity, she insisted on doing a scene where she falls downstairs without a stunt double, resulting in a back injury that plagued her for years. But Stanwyck finished the scene and never mentioned the pain to director Billy Wilder. The real measure of Stanwyck's toughness was her ability to play complex, morally ambiguous characters when other actresses were stuck in one-dimensional roles. Her femme fatale in Double Indemnity was so convincing that the censorship board initially banned the film. Critics called her performance dangerously seductive and more frightening than any monster movie. Stanwick later said she drew inspiration from real women she'd known in Brooklyn who did whatever was necessary to survive. Number 8. Bette Davis. Bette Davis didn't just fight the studio system, she declared war on it, becoming the first major actress to sue her employer and setting legal precedents that changed how performers are treated forever. Her battle with Warner Brothers became front-page news and established Davis as Hollywood's most fearless rebel, someone who'd risk everything for artistic integrity. Davis's most legendary act of defiance came when Warner Brothers tried to force her into mediocre films to punish her for demanding better roles. Instead of submitting, she fled to England and signed with a British production company. Warner Brothers sued, but Davis countersued, claiming the studio was violating her civil rights. The case lasted months and cost her a fortune. But Davis never backed down, even when lawyers warned she might never work in Hollywood again. What made Davis truly formidable was her refusal to let age or changing tastes diminish her career. When other actresses of her generation were being offered grandmother roles, Davis chose Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, a psychological thriller that required her to look haggard and disturbing. The film became a massive hit and proved that Davis could reinvent herself at any age. Critics praised her fearless commitment and absolute refusal to be categorized or dismissed. Number 7. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford transformed herself from a flapper-era dancer into Hollywood's most enduring dramatic actress through sheer force of will, reinventing her image multiple times when other stars would have accepted obsolescence. Her obsession with perfection and control made her both admired and feared by everyone who worked with her. Crawford's toughness was legendary among Hollywood professionals. She worked 18-hour days without complaint, memorized scripts weeks in advance, and arrived on set with detailed notes about every scene. When filming Mildred Pierce, she insisted on learning actual restaurant techniques to make her performance authentic. Director Michael Curtiz initially opposed her casting, but later called her the most prepared actress I've ever worked with. The ultimate test of Crawford's resilience came when she was labeled box office poison in 1938. Instead of retreating, she studied her craft, chose grittier roles, and completely transformed her screen image. Her comeback in Mildred Pierce earned her an Academy Award and proved that determination could overcome industry rejection. Critics noted her unbreakable will and refusal to accept defeat. Crawford later said, "I never let anyone tell me what I couldn't do. That's the secret to survival in this business." Number 6. Ingrid Bergman. Ingrid Bergman faced the most vicious public destruction in Hollywood history when her affair with Italian director Roberto Rossellini made her a social pariah. But she survived 7 years of exile and returned to claim an Oscar that proved true talent always wins in the end. When news broke that the married Bergman was pregnant with Rossellini's child, the American public erupted in fury. She was denounced on the Senate floor as a free love cultist and banned from major studios. Theaters refused to show her films, and former fans burned her pictures in the streets. But Bergman never apologized or tried to explain herself. She simply moved to Italy and continued making films with the man she loved. The proof of Bergman's incredible strength came with Anastasia in 1956. When she returned to Hollywood after 7 years of exile, the industry welcomed her back with an Academy Award. Her acceptance speech, delivered via satellite from France because she was still afraid to return to America, was gracious but unapologetic. Critics called her comeback the most courageous return in cinema history. Bergman had proven that authentic talent and dignity could overcome even the most vicious public persecution. Number 5. Greta Garbo. Greta Garbo achieved something no other actress managed: complete control over her career and image while remaining Hollywood's most enigmatic star. Her refusal to play by publicity rules and her strategic withdrawal from public life created a mystique that made her more powerful than any studio executive. Garbo's toughness wasn't dramatic, it was calculated and absolute. She negotiated contracts that gave her approval over directors, co-stars, and scripts when other actresses were treated like employees. When MGM tried to force her into films she disliked, Garbo simply didn't show up to the studio. Her walkouts cost MGM millions, but they always capitulated to her demands because she was their biggest box office draw. The ultimate display of Garbo's strength was her decision to retire at the peak of her career. In 1941, After Two-Faced Woman received poor reviews, she simply walked away from Hollywood forever. She never made another film, never gave interviews, and never explained her decision. Critics called it the most mysterious exit in entertainment history. Garbo had proven that knowing when to leave was the ultimate power move in an industry that discarded aging actresses without mercy. Number 4. Katherine Hepburn. Katherine Hepburn spent her entire career defying Hollywood's expectations of how actresses should behave, wearing pants when it was scandalous, speaking her mind when it was dangerous, and choosing love over convention in her famous relationship with Spencer Tracy. Hepburn's legendary defiance started early. When RKO executives criticized her unconventional appearance and attitude, she bought out her own contract rather than conform to their demands. She returned to Broadway, proved her worth in the Philadelphia Story, then sold the film rights back to Hollywood on her own terms. This power play gave her control over her career that was unprecedented for actresses of her era. What made Hepburn truly formidable was her refusal to hide her intelligence or tone down her personality for male egos. She chose roles that challenged traditional gender expectations and delivered performances that critics called startlingly modern. Her partnership with Spencer Tracy created cinema's most sophisticated romantic dynamic, proving that audiences craved intelligent women on screen. Directors praised her fearless authenticity and complete lack of vanity. Hepburn once said, "If you obey all the rules, you miss all the fun." And she lived by that philosophy every day of her career. Number 3. Marlene Dietrich. Marlene Dietrich made the most dangerous choice any German actress could make. She rejected Hitler's personal invitation to return to Nazi Germany and instead became an American citizen who used her fame to fight fascism. Her courage during World War II transformed her from a movie star into a genuine hero. When Hitler rose to power, Dietrich was already an international sensation, and the Nazi regime desperately wanted her as a propaganda tool. Instead of accepting the easy path to guaranteed stardom in Germany, she publicly denounced the Nazis and began performing for Allied troops. This decision made her a traitor in her homeland and put her family in danger. But Dietrich never wavered in her opposition to fascism. The true measure of Dietrich's bravery was her willingness to perform in active combat zones during the war. She entertained troops just miles from enemy lines, often under hostile fire. General Patton himself praised her courage, saying she boosted morale more than any USO performer. After the war, Dietrich was awarded the Medal of Freedom for her service, but she remained haunted by her homeland's rejection. Critics called her the most courageous actress of her generation and a woman who chose righteousness over safety. Number 2. Judy Garland. Judy Garland endured horrors that would have destroyed most adults, starting when MGM began feeding amphetamines to a 13-year-old girl to keep her thin and awake for brutal filming schedules. Her survival of the studio system's most abusive practices while maintaining her extraordinary talent makes her one of Hollywood's greatest warriors. The torture Garland endured at MGM was systematic and devastating. Studio executives called her fat and ugly, feeding her pills to suppress appetite and others to help her sleep. She was forced to wear painful dental appliances and subjected to constant criticism about her appearance. But through it all, Garland delivered performances that remain unmatched in their emotional power and technical perfection. What made Garland's toughness remarkable was her ability to channel personal pain into performances that touched millions of souls. Her rendition of Over the Rainbow wasn't just a song, it was the cry of a trapped child dreaming of escape. Even as addiction and mental illness ravaged her personal life, Garland continued performing with a vulnerability that critics called heartbreakingly honest. Her later concerts were legendary for their raw emotion and fearless exposure of her damaged psyche. She proved that sometimes the greatest strength comes from showing the world your deepest wounds. Number 1. Hedi Lamar. Hedi Lamar lived the ultimate double life. By day, she was Hollywood's most glamorous actress, but by night, she was a brilliant inventor whose work laid the foundation for Wi-Fi, GPS, and Bluetooth technology. Her ability to hide her genius behind beauty while secretly changing the world makes her Hollywood's most underestimated warrior. Lamar's toughness began with her escape from Nazi-controlled Austria. Married to an arms dealer who imprisoned her in their mansion, she disguised herself as a maid and fled to America with nothing but her intelligence and determination. In Hollywood, she was immediately typecast as an exotic beauty, but Lamar used this misconception as cover for her real passion: inventing. The ultimate proof of Lamar's strength was her decision to give her most important invention to the U.S. military for free during World War II. Her frequency hopping technology was decades ahead of its time and could have made her incredibly wealthy, but she prioritized defeating fascism over personal profit. The military dismissed her work because they couldn't believe a beautiful actress could understand complex engineering. Critics who learned about her inventions decades later called her the most brilliant mind ever dismissed because of her appearance. Which of these fierce women would you want in your corner during a Hollywood battle? Drop a comment and tell us who you think was the absolute toughest. Here's the real question that'll divide you. Were these women strong because Hollywood tried to break them? Or did Hollywood create monsters it couldn't control?